Going to go ahead and call this November 7th, 2016 meeting of the Whitefish City Council to order. Thanks everyone for coming this evening. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and I will ask Jamie Shannon to lead us tonight. Thank you, Jamie. I think I have a pretty good idea why most of you are here, but you're going to have to indulge us for a few minutes and listen to an update on our City Hall and parking structure construction progress. And with us tonight is Mike Cronquist, our owner's representative on the project, for a quick update. Thanks, Mike.
I promise I'll try to make this fast tonight.
Quite all right.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, there were a couple of items that of some significance that happened in the past period. One is that we got the third section of the ramp on the parking structure poured, got the tendons pulled and tied off, and the next item that happened last week was the alley got paved, courtesy of Mr. Workman. And I'm not sure, but maybe the alley paving is not the bigger of the two. Anyway, there are about 3,400 yards, a little less than 3,400 yards total concrete poured. Of that, there's around 750 or 775 yards in the City Hall, 2,620 odd yards of parking structure. The overall concrete is 75 to 80% complete. The next big pour will be 375 to 400 yards, and that will be the fourth and final element of the parking structure ramps. The interior framing is about 90% complete. There's still some miscellaneous soffit work and some door frames and things like that that are left. Drywall has been started and is in progress. We're expecting to heat the building this week. So right on the tail of the drywall, they'll start taping, texturing, and get headed towards the finish work. Storefronts have been ordered. They are probably 2 to 3 weeks out. When they come in, then they'll start setting those in place. The electrical is in the neighborhood of 70%. They're planning to set the main switchgear this week, and sometime in the next week to 10 days, it'll probably be powered up with permanent power. HVAC is continuing at 70 to 75%. Brickwork has started on the outside in the front along Baker Street, and we expect that will probably take 2 to 3 weeks to complete that front element. And then they'll just continue wrapping right on around the side up the Baker Street side of the City Hall and along the parking structure. I said temporary heat is in this week. Look ahead, the final ramp of the parking structure is scheduled for on or about the 28th of November. It'll be the first week after the Thanksgiving break. Continue with the brick, continue with the power. And I told you about setting the switchgear this week, and power up. I don't know exactly when that's on Flathead Electric. Mechanical and plumbing are continuing. Drywall will continue, and the tape and textures will start. And they're setting hollow metal doors now, and that will continue throughout. As far as contract issues, there's been nothing new this week. Communications, we did a press tour with the pilot 2 weeks ago, and Heidi published a very nice write-up, I thought, last week and last week's issue of the pilot. Last week I did a similar tour with the reporters from the Beacon, and I don't know when that will be out. I expect this week, but they didn't say, so I don't know for sure. The public relations remain good, and so far I have no major areas of concern.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Any questions for Mike on his weekly reports? Not seeing any. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is what we refer to as an extra mile proclamation. It's something the city does pretty much every year, and it's in honor of organizations or individuals that have certainly gone out of their way or, quote, the extra mile in their daily endeavors to make this community a better place to live, work, and raise families. And I'm pleased to see a majority of the Whitefish Community Foundation members here this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and read this Extra Mile Day proclamation. And at the end, I would love to invite Linda as well as the board members up in front, along with the city council, so we can get a photo opportunity as we present you a memorial plaque from the city. So I'll go ahead and read this. Whereas Whitefish, Montana is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal efforts, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Whitefish, Montana is a community which encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, families, friends, and community. And whereas Whitefish, Montana is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who, quote, go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Whitefish, Montana acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 575 extra mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day retroactively on November 1st, 2016, because we didn't meet 2 weeks ago. Whereas the Whitefish Community Foundation, since its inception in 2000, has supported local nonprofit organizations serving whitefish with over $20 million in grant funding, including supporting the hungry, assisting and lifting the underserved, building affordable housing, caring for the sick and impoverished, supporting programs to protect and enhance our natural environments, and enriching our lives and community through the arts. Whereas since 2008, under the direction and leadership of Linda N. Grady, president of Whitefish Community Foundation, the community grants programs have grown to award over $500,000 annually, with assets now exceeding $12 million. And whereas on October 10th, Whitefish Community Foundation distributed nearly $1.5 million to 40 participating nonprofits in the second annual Great Fish Community Challenge. The challenge received over 2,400 donations, totaling close to $1.2 million. Nearly all participating nonprofits received $15,000 or more and the maximum grant of $8,250. And whereas the city of Whitefish recognizes all the individuals, businesses, and organizations who donated to make the 2016 Great Fish Community Challenge a success, donations literally flooded into the foundation office, both online and in the mail during the final 2 weeks of the campaign. And whereas the city of Whitefish tonight honors the hard work and commitment of the Whitefish Community Foundation staff, the advisory council, and board of directors, including President Linda N. Grady, Vice President Darla Perez, Special Projects Leader Linda Hobbs, and past and present foundation board members, including many with us tonight, including Board Chairman David Dittman, Linda Metzold, Ken Wessels, Artis Whistler, Jamie Shannon, John Collins, Jeff Allen, Carol Atkinson, Betsy Bain, Judah Gersh, Joe Gregory, Mike Jensen, John Kramer, Jay Latimer, Sherry Lassar, Lori Miller, Monica Pastor, Tom Quinn, Doug Reed, Kristen Tabor, and John Witt. And I know I missed some, but hopefully I covered most. Your visions and efforts are testaments to the values we embrace as a community in Whitefish. And tonight we honor and thank you and all of the individuals, organizations, and businesses who donated to the 2016 Great Fish Community Challenge. You indeed lift our community and make it a place we are all proud to live. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of Whitefish, do hereby retroactively proclaim November 1st, 2016 to be Extra Mile Day I urge each individual every day in their community to take time to not only go the extra mile in his or her own life, but also to acknowledge all those organizations and inspirations, and all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, and world a better place. And I would just like everyone to give a big round of applause to Linda and the entire Community Foundation Board. Quick photo op.
What's that?
We're going to have a quick photo op with the board and Linda.
Can I have a moment of personal privilege either now or later, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say, when I first heard about the Community Foundation, when the first article I read in the pilot in 2000, I thought, wow, this is ambitious. And that ambition has certainly been realized. And I was just visiting with former Mayor Jensen a moment ago, and we were talking about the pie being expanded over the years to reach every aspect of our community. I think that we would be hard-pressed to find anybody in the Whitefish community that has not been touched by some of the contributions and the good works that the Community Foundation has done. And that pie has not only gotten to be a pie, but I think it's a giant pie now, and it's not just any ordinary pie, it's pure 100% Whitefish huckleberry pie.
We're going to go ahead and continue. Thanks for your patience. We'll move on to item 4, communications from the public. This is time set aside for the public to comment on items that are on the agenda but not advertised as a public hearing, or anything you'd wish to bring to the attention of the City Council. And just for the record, your name and address if you approach the podium. Any public comment tonight not related to a public hearing? Not seeing any, we will stay with the audience. Any volunteer board reports from the audience? Rebecca.
Rebecca Norton, 530 Scott Avenue. I'm going to read this because I'm kind of tired from watching election stuff. So I volunteered to be the chair of the Wisconsin Avenue Corridor Plan Steering Committee. Kate McMahon and her husband Bob Horn are the planners the city chose to work with on this project. The vice chair is Tom Tornow, who's an attorney with an office along the corridor. This is a 6-month process, and we meet once a month. If someone that would like to be added to the listserv, they can contact our planning director, Dave Taylor. The corridor extends from the viaduct along Wisconsin all the way to the Big Mountain turnoff, and includes a variety of businesses and houses and living quarters. We're planning to have an open house on Wednesday night. Brian and Sean Averill have agreed to sponsor it and host it at the Whitefish Lake Lodge. It'll go from 5 to 7 p.m. We'll have light refreshments, and we'd love to have a great turnout. It is the day after the election, so some people will be kind of bummed and some people will be kind of happy, and so there is a cash bar next door. But I just kind of wanted people to remember that you do make a difference on the local level. It's kind of where a lot of people think true democracy happens, is you showing up and making your community the best you can. So again, it's Wednesday, 5 to 7, Whitefish Lake Lodge, free refreshments, cash bar, and we can explain more if you come, but we'd love to see you, and all of you too. Thanks.
Rebecca, you might want to pass on to the committee. We did get a letter of interest from Ryan Brown. He's a property owner, resident of Wisconsin Avenue.
Oh.
And I believe he's interviewing on the 21st of November.
Okay.
So he'll be a great addition to the committee.
Is he going to come on Wednesday then?
He's in Mexico.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I don't think so. Thanks, Rebecca. Further volunteer board reports from the audience. How about the council? Deputy.
The Bike Ped Committee did meet this morning. We went through very quickly a long laundry list of items that have been on our agenda from time to time. But perhaps the most important thing is that the final Bike Ped master plan update will be out for the December city council meeting. Isn't that right? I think that's, so we should be looking for that. And I suspect it'll be on the website ahead of time. And it'll be before the planning board on the 17th this of November. So be looking for that, everyone. It's a great addition, and I think that this is going to be your last chance to make input and comment. And there'll be a public hearing, as we said, that goes with it, both at the planning board level and at the city council level.
Thanks, Richard. Further reports from the council? Not seeing any. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Any changes or additions to the October 3rd meeting minutes? Richard?
Yes, just one correction to the minutes on page 91. It's referring to you going up to the Crown of the Continent Conference, and just change the word top to topic. It's just a typo. And that's in the last paragraph.
Thanks. Motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that's unanimous, Michelle. Which brings us on to our two public hearings of the evening. We will start with our own resolution 16-59, a resolution to establish an increase in the public usage fee for the Whitefish City Beach boat launch facility, and this is on page 141 of your packet. Maria.
Good evening. Back a couple of months ago, I proposed to the council some fee changes for the Parks Department, including the boat launch season pass fees, which were raised from $40 to $50. Not included in that was the daily boat launch pass. And there was some discussion from council to see if there was interest on the park board level to increase that daily rate as well. I did take it to the park board on September 13th, and they discussed a variety of options for raising the boat launch fee, but ultimately they determined to raise it from $5 to $10. That would be their recommendation to the council. After the park board made that recommendation, the department did advertise for a public hearing in the Whitefish pilot on October 12th and October 19th. A hand copy was put before you regarding past day pass revenue dollars and season pass totals, and just wanted you to take a look at that to see. I can't really come up with what the total revenue generated would be from this. There's some variables. When you're looking at raising it from $5 to $10, it doesn't necessarily double the daily pass revenue. Some people may choose to instead purchase a season pass. At this time, you could purchase 10 trips before you've paid off your season pass. But if we are to increase it to $10, it would be 5 trips, 5 launches in order to pay off your season pass. So it may sway people to purchase a season pass instead. May also encourage people to go over to State Park because it's an $8 rate there, or if you are a citizen of the state of Montana, it's free. And then, as you're taking a look at this and you look at how many days we were closed due to weather, the weather always has a role to play in how many people are going to purchase a daily pass as opposed to a season pass. So I couldn't really tell you exactly how much revenue you could expect to generate from that. We actually have to monitor it and see. But $5 does seem to be low comparably to other boat launches in the area. And so with that, I and the Park Board of Commissioners respectfully recommend that the City Council implement a fee increase of the Whitefish City Beach daily boat launch rate from $5 to $10 per vessel. And I can answer any questions if you have any.
Thanks, Maria. Any questions for Maria? Richard?
Maria, if we went to, instead of 10, and made it the same as the state park, do you think that that would have any influence on whether people did or did not launch? Or do you have a sense of that $2 difference making a difference between the two launch facilities?
I don't have a sense that it would make a difference. We did talk about that at the park board level, and the reason they were initially considering the $8 rate, and the reason that they went to the $10 rate was the convenience level of not having to make change and handing over a $10 bill as, or 2 5s as opposed to having to make change with ones. And they did feel that $10 was a reasonable fee, so.
Is there AIS inspection at the state park?
That's correct.
So they won't?
No, I'm sorry, not at the state park, although I believe that they are. Whitefish Lake Institute is talking to them about the AIS inspection,
Okay,
but they do not currently.
all right.
They do have volunteers on occasion. I do know that at State Park.
Okay.
That do some inspection, but it's not to the
But it's
degree
not
we
a
do at
daily-
City Beach, yeah. So, further questions from Maria? We did advertise for a public hearing on what will be our own ordinance 16-59. We'll hold that public hearing now. Anyone wishing to provide comment, your name and address for the record, please.
Well, I'm Paul McCann, and I live at 340 Summers Avenue. I'm in support of raising the fee, but what I'd like to see is the dock, the length of the dock is really too short. In the fall, when the water level goes down, I've been out there launching my own boat and so forth, and I've seen many, many boats hit rocks just because it's so shallow, and maybe the solution would be to extend the dock out further and prevent that, but I was out there last year, it was just one boat after another, quit hitting the bottom. The what's it called, Big Sky Prop, very happy about it. But nevertheless, a lot of other people weren't. So that's my comment. I'm in support of raising the fee though.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Further public testimony tonight? Jim?
My name's Jim Laidlaw. I live at 1230 Line Mountain Drive in Whitefish. I'm in support of the increase, and I'd just like to say that State Park is really difficult to get into. Our association uses that all the time. It's hard to get in, hard to get out, and there's very inadequate turnaround. So we've got a much better facility in the city.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Further public comment tonight? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to council for a motion or discussion. Pam?
I would move to approve resolution number 16-59, a resolution to establish an increase in the public usage fee for the Whitefish City Beach boat launch.
Thanks, Pam. Is there a second to the motion?
Second?
Motion has been seconded by Councilor Hildner. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that carries unanimously. Michelle. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 7B, which is consideration of a request from the Whitefish Hotel Group to amend conditional use permit number 14-11 for the Firebrand Hotel located at 650 East 3rd Street in order to locate a hot tub on the roof, and this is on page 144 of your packet. Hi, Wendy.
Good evening. So the request before you is to amend condition number 22 of WCUP 1411 in order to locate a hot tub on the roof of the Firebrand Hotel. The reason this is coming before you is we don't have a standard process for just amending a condition, so you have to go back through the whole entire conditional use permit process. So it's an amendment to the original conditional use permit. The property is located at the southeast corner of East 2nd and Spokane Avenue at Zone WB3. Again, they are requesting an amendment to condition number 22 to locate a hot tub on the roof of the hotel. This would be located in the northwest portion of the roof on the north side of the hotel and would only be available to guests of the hotel with a key card. It would be accessed by either elevator or stairs. It should be noted that all the conditions of approval for the original conditional use permit have been met, or they're working on finalizing some items, such as the street furniture is still in progress, and some of the street lights we're still waiting for. So you folks approved the conditional use permit for the Firebrand Hotel because it exceeded 7,500 square feet on February 2nd, 2015, subject to 24 conditions of approval. During the public hearing process before the Planning Board and City Council, public comments identified concerns related to activities on the roof of the hotel. Residents noted how noise from nearby restaurants and bars infiltrate into the adjacent neighborhood, and the location of this hotel, even closer to the residential neighborhood, could be even more intrusive. So condition number 22 stated, under no circumstances shall the rooftop facilities be used as a bar for music or other entertainment for anything other than a patio. It was discovered by staff in January of this year during the construction process that there were plans to install a hot tub on the roof of the hotel. The hot tub was not shown on the building plans that were issued in July of 2015. Once this intention was revealed, staff reviewed the conditions of approval and informed the owner that only a patio was permitted, no other uses. The applicant then requested an official zoning interpretation from the zoning administrator that patio could also include a hot tub. The zoning administrator made this determination in February of 2016 that the condition precluded the installation of a hot tub. The applicant was informed that they could either appeal the zoning administrator determination to the Board of Adjustment or request an amendment to condition number 22. The applicant chose to appeal this decision, and in May, the Board of Adjustment did meet, and after testimony and deliberation, the board concurred with the zoning administrator and directed the applicant to apply to amend their conditional use permit. In August of this year, the building department did issue a certificate of occupancy for the hotel. Staff noticed adjacent landowners within 150 feet, noticed advisory agencies, and placed illegal in the pilot. We've received quite a bit of comment before the packet went out, after the packet went out, and since the packet has been sent to you. We've received 27 comments in support of this request, that it'll bring more business to the hotel and that it'll add value to the hotel in the downtown. There have been 6 emails or letters against it, and they are citing continued concerns with noise and neighborhood impact. And one comment questioned the use of the roof as usable space, essentially a 4th floor. We've also received late last week a letter from the applicant's attorney questioning the requirement for the original CUP in the first place. So again, we review conditional use permits according to the criteria set forth in the zoning regulations. Again, a lot of those criteria don't apply because the building's built and a lot of the impacts have already been addressed. So just to hit kind of some of the highlights of the items that do apply to this particular request. Under neighborhood and community impact, under noise or vibration, the applicant has submitted 2 reports on sound indicating that noise from the hot tub will not be noticeable due to the noise surrounding the project from other sources. The consultants indicate any noise originating on the roof will not transmit into adjacent residential areas. The applicant has installed an 8-foot tall wood fence along the south and east sides of the hot tub to reduce any noise towards the residential areas. And they've also installed a 5-foot glass wall along the north and west side to further reduce noise but permit views of the mountains. We did note when we went up there and took some photos, which are in the packet for you, that there are some speakers on the roof facing Spokane Avenue. These speakers alone may not pose a noise problem. However, if any additional speakers are added, they could contribute to additional noise coming from the rooftop. Noise was one of the main reasons council added condition number 22. The public testimony was compelling as they described noise from downtown establishments with live music. And there was a concern that there would be a rooftop bar with live music. Under neighborhood, community, and compatibility, the building is constructed, so issues surrounding neighborhood compatibility with structural, bulk, mass scale, density, and neighborhood context have already been addressed through the review of the conditional use permit, architectural review, and the building permit. This commercial district in this area is right at the edge of the residential area, and as such needs to be carefully designed to be a good neighbor. Through the conditional use permit process, numerous comments were received about compatibility of a hotel adjacent to an existing residential neighborhood and possible negative effects. Issues such as landscaping, buffering, traffic, and noise were all discussed. These issues were mitigated through conditions of approval. The effects of usable space on top of the rooftop was also a concern, as it essentially creates a fourth floor. And again, the neighbors pointed to other establishments. So when the council added condition number 22, all of these issues and the public testimony were part of the careful consideration. We don't find that the conditions have changed to warrant changing that condition of approval. Issues surrounding neighborhood compatibility remain an important part of preserving the character of the neighborhood and the community, especially now that the project is constructed. The planning board held a public hearing on October 20th. Following the hearing, the planning board did recommend denial of amending that condition of approval. They did hold a public hearing, and the applicant and hotel manager spoke at the hearing in support of the application, and 2 members of the public spoke in opposition to the request, citing noise and incompatibility with the neighborhood. So can I answer any questions?
Thanks, Wendy. Any questions for Wendy? Andy?
Yeah, Wendy, where are we at on the time clock on this application?
The application was deemed complete on September 2nd, so 90 days is December 1st.
Okay. Further questions? Not seeing any. Thanks, Wendy. We did advertise for a public hearing on this request from the Whitefish Hotel Group to amend their conditional use permit number 14-11 for the Firebrand Hotel related to locating a hot tub on the roof, and we'll hold that public hearing now. The applicant is obviously present. Sean, you're more than welcome to take the stage and name and address for the record, please.
Sean Averill, 697 Armory Road. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for letting us talk about the hot tub. Hopefully we'll put this to bed maybe tonight. We'll see. I just wanted to give you guys a quick history of kind of how we came to where we are. Richard, you might have a repeat from the other night, but you know, a hotel's been on the master plan for a long time in Whitefish, and the reason why no one's done it is because it's very challenging. It's very economically hard to pull off a hotel. But I think that the growth policy realized is such an economic driver for downtown businesses that it's an advantageous thing to have. So, you know, it's sat there for a long time, and nobody did that. We looked at a couple sites. You know, we looked at one across the northern, in those vacant lots. We couldn't, you know, make that economically work. We looked at a city-owned site on the south end of Central, tried to do a hotel there, and it's very challenging to get a hotel to work. And so when Block 46 kind of came available, you know, we looked at, you know, the history of that. You know, it was assembled by Mark Kwame, actually, and that was, you know, he was going to build a massive kind of development. That fell apart for various reasons. But then when Orland came in there, Sorensen, he was going to try to do a hotel. If you guys recall, the hotel spread the entire block. And that block is made up of 19 commercial lots, but 7 residential lots too. So, you know, that would have been a PUD over the whole site. So we really think we kind of, you know, did a nice service by keeping it on the commercial lots, not venturing in the residential portion. And I believe that Orland's Hotel had a rooftop bar or something on there. There was an event area up on the roof. So, you know, and that was working its way through approvals, but again, you know, he could not economically pull that off. It was challenging. So when it came available again for us, we kind of looked at this thing and came to the conclusion, hey, I think we can do a downtown hotel, something that the city's wanted for a long time. And so we kind of looked and talked to Dave and various people about, you know, what we could do or not. And, you know, we thought we could just build it by right. Obviously, the city wanted to have us go through a CUP. We agreed to it. But at the time, we were leaning towards a flagged business hotel. And the reason why is that 40% of your customers come through the website. So it's a very, you know, that's the only way we thought really we could pull it off. But if you guys recall, about a week before city council on this, it was, hey, we don't want a flagged hotel downtown. We agreed to it. And that sounds really easy, just to switch from a flagged hotel to a boutique hotel, but in reality, it's very challenging. We had to redesign it. We had to reappraise it. First of all, the bank did not want us to do it. We didn't, our finance was in jeopardy, but we actually pulled that off. But what happened, which is very important right there, is the amenities changed from a national flagged type hotel to a boutique hotel. You know, we had a pool in the basement, and pool in the basement doesn't work on a boutique hotel. We need unique amenities. We need special things to try to attract, because again, you're losing 40% of your business that would come through the national things. These are traveling sales guys who would go to Kalispell or something, you know, so we had to attract new members. So when we had to redesign it, that's where we decided to build it on a design build. So amenities were being discussed, and by the time we realized, hey, you know, we need a hot tub on the roof, we were pretty far into this. So it wasn't a sneaky thing where we were trying to sneak a hot tub through. We really had to change everything from a flagged hotel to this boutique. So it's a big process to change it, a lot of design changes, a lot of headaches, and we had talked to consultants. And so by the time it came to the conclusion, hey, you need these amenities, hot tub on the roof for ski groups, we were under construction, we were going. So that's kind of how it came to be. You know, a couple of things we did on this thing, you guys recall also, is we did move it over 18 feet, gave that to the public basically for the promenade. You know, we also, you know, as I talked earlier, we built it only on the commercial lots. You know, the parking is, you know, voluntary there. That zoning requires no parking, so I think we provided our portion of the parking issue. If, you know, going back to the zoning there, if you could legally have 19 buildings there with hot tubs on the roof of all of them, you know, so that was kind of our interpretation, that when we asked Dave for interpretation, could you put a hot tub on a patio? We thought you could. So it wasn't, we're trying to sneak a hot tub there. We honestly thought, you know, we can have music and a bar, but we thought a hot tub could be allowed under that condition. Obviously, what happened at the Board of Adjustments and the Planning Board is they want the City Council to decide this. This is, you guys made the condition. This is kind of for you guys to decide. The Board of Adjustments didn't want to make that decision. But, you know, the other things we did is, remember, the whole building is made of rock and brick. You know, we really tried to make this thing look good and try to be a good partner with the city. And on one hand, we can't have that flagged hotel, which we agreed with, but, you know, we have a boutique now, but now we don't have the amenities to make a boutique successful. So, you know, I believe if we would have known all those things at the time of that first application, hey, you guys don't want to have a flagged hotel, we have to have a rooftop hot tub, it probably would have been approved. But we just didn't know at that time. So my brother can talk about some of the economic benefits for the town. He also worked on a sound engineer study to talk about, you know, the sound, because that's a big deal. You know, I did make a list of Planning Board of some of the other concerns we heard. Sound was obviously one of them. Brian talked about that. You know, we heard a lot of ideas about who would be in that hot tub. Are there going to be drunks up there? You know, this is, as Wendy mentioned, you have to be staying there. There's not a bring your own booze situation going on. It's, you know, be monitored by the staff. We also heard a lot about parking, which really has nothing to do with this hotel or this hot tub application. But, you know, the parking, I'm sure that when it was under construction, there was people that parked in the residential neighborhood. I'm sure it's the same thing when the city hall construction, there's people parking. It's, you know, we're sorry about that. We know that the hotel does impact some people. But I think you guys got to keep in mind, it's such an economic benefit for every business downtown. And there's towns that they're so envious to have a downtown hotel that, you know, it's hard to pull off. So I appreciate that. I'll be around for questions later. I'll turn over to my brother. He can talk about some of the sound stuff, unless you guys have questions right now.
Any questions for Sean? Thanks, Sean.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it. Brian Averill. So over the last couple months, we've heard a number of comments about the hot tub, and we went about trying to address them so we can talk to you folks about what and how to do them. The main one that we heard was sound. Everyone was concerned about sound. How would that hot tub potentially impact the residential community? And so to figure that one out, we wanted to figure that out for ourselves. We hired a sound engineering company out of Missoula to come up and do a test. And we decided we didn't want to test the noise of my voice at this level. We wanted to test the noise at the extreme, at the maximum. So we tested it at what would be considered rock concert level sound test, which we'll explain a little bit later. Interesting, I got to learn a lot about sound through this process. It's a little out of my norm, but I have a lot of information at this point. So in your packet, there is a a study by that sound company out of Missoula, and it looks like this. It's labeled JMS Productions. And on page 2, there is a chart that talks about sound, and there's 2 boxes that we're going to really talk about mainly here. It's the first box is at 95 to 120 dBs, and that's the rock concert level of sound. And then we're also going to talk about the box down below at 55 to 64 dBs, and this is normal background sound noise that you'd hear outside today. So further in that packet, if you go to page 6, this is a graph that shows a comparison of what background noise is today outside around the block, and then we added a noise source, 2 different noise sources, and retested what the sound is with those noise sources. So the first thing to note is that, again, we tested that at the max at the rock concert level. And then most importantly, through this process, we discovered that there is no discernible noise was able to be detected during our test. And so on that page, and I'll flip to that, so you can see on this graph, there's a number of different locations where we tested it. The first column off to the left-hand side is the rooftop. That's a noise that we did up at the rooftop. Second column is Kalispell and 2nd, Columbia and 2nd, Columbia and 3rd Street between Kalispell and Spokane. So those are all the different test locations. And we took it into the middle of the street in Columbia just to make sure that we understood what it was like in a residential spot. So starting on the columns, the gray line is the background ambient noise out there today. The blue line is the first sound test that we did, and it's called pink noise, which is just a static noise, a noise source. In this case, they use static, turned up to that 95 decibel level. And then the orange line is Stevie Wonder. We blasted Stevie Wonder as loud as possible to see what kind of impact we could get if there was. And so that first column to the left-hand side represents the noise as tested on the roof, and then those other columns represent the noise as we tested it down at the street level. And you'll note, if you remember from the sound chart, all of them down at the street level land within that 55 to 64 dBs level, which is normal background level of noise. So here's the summary of what we learned after that test, and there's a lot more information in that sound report, but the summary, tests show that you can expect no significant discernible change in noise levels to the surrounding residential areas. Noise test was conducted at the extreme to demonstrate worst case scenario, so it would naturally be much different if you tested people up there on the deck, much different. We measured the sound on Columbia Avenue, so we knew if there was an impact to the residential community. And then a quote from the statement. This is the summary of the sound study. Due to the existing background noise, site topography, physical of the sound, and efforts taken by the firebrand in creating noise barrier walls, it would take an intentional effort to raise the noise level long enough to disturb the peace at the neighborhood residential properties. You should expect operations to easily be below commonly acceptable government standards. So then you ask, why would that be? If you could put rock concert level noise up on the roof, how would that not affect the residential community? And so these pictures are 2 pictures that show what the rooftop looks like. So the hot tub would actually physically sit right there in the middle, and then you can see facing south, that is about a 6-foot cedar fence, and then facing east, the same cedar fence. Well, that cedar fence is a sound barrier or block that actually really absorbs the sound. And partly what we learned about sound is that sound doesn't operate like a rainbow. sound operates as it goes, it loses. If you go directional, it gets lower the farther the distance goes. It also gets lower if it goes down in elevation. So between the surround, the distance, and the elevation drop is what's causing the noise not being able to be heard in residential. So some hotel policies. How would we operate the hot tub? Hours of operation, we'd have it 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's pretty standard. Quiet hours, we have quiet hours over at the lodge. We would take the same practice over to the Firebrand as well. Security personnel, we would have security. We do have security over there right now. It would help monitor the hot tub. Security cameras, we would employ security cameras to help us monitor those areas. This is something that we use at the lodge quite frequently. We train our staff in the quiet to protect the quiet enjoyment of other guests. So we get involved when guests are impacting the quiet enjoyment of others. It's just a natural process we do at the lodge. We find it very effective. We do the same thing downtown. Key card access. So to access the roof area, you need a key card, given out by the front desk. To get up the stairs, you got to have a key card. To get you on the roof, to get the elevator to go up, you got to have a key card. And then if someone by chance scaled the side of the building, they would have to have a key card to get into the gate around the hot tub there. PKF. So PKF is a consulting company in Montana. They specialize in hotels. We asked him to weigh in on the situation to give an opinion about what hotels need, what independent boutique hotels need to be successful. And the letter you have in your packet, but these are the summary of the letter. Based on my professional experience, aside from lounge beverage service, an outdoor hot tub is rated as the most important amenity for a mountain resort property with proximity to skiing. The hotel would lose up to 20% of its revenue. This loss would not only be reoccurring, but it would also jeopardize the financial viability of the project. In my professional work in the mountain resort destinations, I have never encountered a high-quality, upscale, independent, full-service hotel that did not offer a hot tub amenity. And then, as you all well aware, one of the main reasons the hotel was in the master plan was that economic driver. And we studied this heavily when we were in front of you 2 years ago, but there's a ratio between every dollar a hotel guest spends in the hotel is what it equates to in the community. And our projections were that the Firebrand would bring right around $26.5 million spent in the community on an annual basis. And that up to 20% that we heard about from PKF could potentially impact that by about $5 million or reduce it by about $5 million to the community. And then, of course, we talked about all sorts of taxes and what the benefit of the community would be, the resort tax, tourism promotion assessment, property taxes, and the net reduction of that 20% would be about $37,000 annually to the city. The other one that we heard a lot about was the visual impact. Would kids potentially look in there? Would people see hot tub? Would people see people in bathing suits? So we happened to go up there on a bright sunny morning, and the surround around the hot tub area is all frosted, which is shown in the pictures there. And so this would demonstrate, we would frost that glass. And so this would demonstrate the visual block that you would see with that glass frosted. And then this would be facing west with the same thing. We also backed up and stood at the foot of the middle school and looked back up, and we happened to catch it on another frosty day. It's been cold out there lately. And so you can see that would represent the glass frosted looking up at where the hot tub area would be from the middle school. And then this is about 9 in the morning, so right after when school got in the planning board, we heard a little bit about, kids potentially looking over at the school and potentially looking into the windows. We took a picture to try to demonstrate, this is the view from the school. This is standing outside, but this would be what it would look like. And then, of course, this is zoomed in on those same pictures, just trying to show, could you actually physically see into those windows? I saw a lot of reflection, I saw a lot of shadows, but I would have a hard time seeing into the windows. I wasn't sure if that was good enough, so I called the principal of the middle school and said, have you had any concerns, had any complaints? He said as of last week, he hasn't had any concerns, hasn't had any complaints, but it was good to make the contact, so if he needs anything. And that's, I guess that's all I have here.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Not seeing any. If there's any, in a few minutes, we'll call you back up. I have a sign-up sheet. I had Paul, and then Leo and Amy signed up for public comment, but of course, doesn't mean you can't comment. Just approach the podium and your name and address for the record, please.
Paul McCann, 340 Summers Avenue. So I live about, Summers Avenue. Summers is 2 blocks from this rooftop. I guess I just had more questions. With these, there's supposed to be patio use only. I should back up when the approval process is going on, and I visited some of my neighbors and so forth, and we were concerned about the noise. That was a large issue, and site. Yeah, and we thought, well, the patio sounds okay. There's no hot tub, no pool, no bar, no rock band music up there. So, so fine. But now we find out there's speakers up there. I don't know why there's speakers up there. And then this hot tub, I read the police blotter once in a while, and I see that, there's disturbances at this hotel, at the hot tub, and people are partying and drinking and all that sort of thing. So my question is, can you limit this condition where there's no alcohol at all allowed at this hot tub? That's it. Because I would believe that if there was no alcohol up there, it would definitely help minimize the noise, the party. And at the same time, I think people would like to stay at the hotel, still like to stay at the hotel because there's still a hot tub to use and so forth. It's just not a party spot. I've been to enough resort hotels and ski areas, and there's a good time happening there. And it goes late at night. Many times I show up in the morning to use the hot tub. And you can see there's been a party all night there going on. So that's a concern is, I guess, no alcohol. Then it gets down to, well, if you approve it, then how are we going to enforce it? How do we enforce it? I mean, do we have to expend the resources of the community to try to enforce this? Because I just see it as ripe for abuse. So that would be my question to come back, is how are we going to enforce this, and whether you can do it without alcohol. That would be a concern of mine also. I mean, this is a large hot tub. Was it 10 by 22 feet? Some people would call that a pool, but I guess the difference is just the temperature, water temperature. So that's my the comment about this renegotiation of the conditions. And I sympathize with the developers, but nevertheless, I live in the neighborhood. We're trying to keep it a neighborhood, and it's, we're trying to keep it quiet as best we can. But it also, it brings up another issue on this lot. I mentioned it, the lot is these 3 houses. They were on the east side of the development site. There's 3 houses, and then one of the houses was taken down, and during the construction period, it was taken down. It was kind of used as a staging site, which is probably okay, and they stored some material and equipment and so forth during the construction. But after the construction, in August, I go by there and I see numerous cars parked on it. It's leveled and it's gravel now. And I see numerous cars parked there. I even saw a motor coach one day, you know, these big tour buses, big black thing. It was parked on there, this thing, this lot. It was supposed to be used for residential purposes. And that concerns me. I noticed they put up a couple of small, inexpensive, no parking signs. Of course, they didn't put it in front of the curb cut. They put it in front, you know, just on the side, which looks very temporary to me. And I was told that they need to have access to that site so they can do proper trash removal for this commercial building. So then if that's the case, then we turn that site into a commercial site that's supposed to be residential. I find that disturbing. And then I was told during the development projects, it was supposed to be fenced back there, but I did read it today, and I see it says it's supposed to be screened. And then I was informed, well, they planted some plantings to screen the east side of one of the lots. Well, those plants are just little landscape plants about this high. I mean, they're not screening anything. And so you just got this kind of unsightly view from our neighborhood into a parking lot. So that's some observations, and I just, you know, this creeping renegotiation of covenants or conditions is disturbing to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Leo.
Leo Rosenthal, 236 Columbia Avenue in Whitefish. I live one block east of the firebrand. Some of you probably, I look familiar to you because I've attended every public hearing since the inception of this project. Since the beginning, I've always opposed the project based on the size of the project as well as the impact to the adjacent neighborhood. So just like Sean mentioned, there's a lot of history to this. I have my own history to it. This whole process began because these developers wanted to build a hotel that was twice the square footage that was allowed under the current zoning regulations. Current zoning allows for 7,500 square feet, and they applied for a conditional use permit because they wanted to build twice the allowable size. They touted this as a boutique hotel, but then they rolled out plans for one of Whitefish's largest hotels. During the conditional use permit process, myself, as well as many other Whitefish residents, expressed concerns regarding parking, traffic, and noise associated with a proposed rooftop patio. So this process went on for months. And in the end, City Council decided to approve the conditional use permit and therefore allow construction of the hotel, but they didn't go about it lightly. They placed a lot of thought into this, and they took into consideration much of the public comment that they received. And in the end, City Council appropriately placed several conditions on the construction of the hotel. One of the more thoughtful conditions was that the rooftop patio could not be used for a bar, music, or any other entertainment purposes. This condition was placed to mitigate any potential noise impacts to the adjacent neighborhood. So then we've come to find out that they tried to slip one by the city, and I heard that, you know, they say that this was all part of the design build, but I have a different view of that, and they tried to slip one by the city. They tried to build a hot tub up there that they knew wasn't going to get permitted, and it was only after prodding by the city planning staff did they ever admit that, yeah, we're building a hot tub up there. None of the approved building plans that they ever submitted ever depicted a hot tub up on the roof. Being disingenuous is nothing new to these developers. Concerns were raised during the original CUP process regarding parking. They said they'd provide 75-plus parking spots for their guests, and now we find out that they're charging guests $12 a day to park there and encouraging them to park in the residential area if they don't want to pay. Concerns were raised against the appropriateness of a bar across the street from the middle school, and this is in your packet. This is in the minutes from the city council meeting. Brian Averill said, and this is a quote, "Food and beverage services as depicted will be limited, so people will go out into the community, but they have to have some services. They have no plans for a full restaurant and lounge for the public, more just something for the guests." And yet now they advertise live music on Flathead events. They place signboards out on the sidewalk trying to encourage people to come in off the street to eat and drink there. They have live music. They advertise now that the rooftop patio can be used for for weddings and social gatherings, and they've installed speakers up there knowing that music and other entertainment are not allowed. So I commend City Council for being proactive and limiting the uses of the rooftop to mitigate for impacts to the adjacent neighborhood. But now it's time to follow through with your commitment and hold these developers to the conditions in their permit. And unlike what Sean said, that the Board of Adjustments and all these people want City Council to make this decision, all these people have already made their decision. This request has been denied or recommended denial by Dave Taylor, the zoning administration, the Board of Adjustments, city planning staff, and the city planning board. So I urge you, please consider the residents of Whitefish and stop this hotel from impacting us any further. Thanks.
Thanks, Leo. Who's next?
Janice McCann at 340 Summers Avenue. I just had a question. I'm not sure about the sound study. I know at my house at 340 Summers Avenue, I can hear the school announcements from the high school. It's not a rock concert. I just find it hard to believe they could put the sound at the level of a rock concert at the hotel that's closer to me, that I won't hear it, but yet I can hear the school announcements. I can't understand how that study was done and how it would work that way. I also know that when the weather's cold, I can hear more sound than when it's warm out. I don't know if it's the temperature, the density of the air, but sound seems to travel more in the winter in this area, and I don't know how that affects it. It's a quiet neighborhood, and it's really important for us to protect it. I feel like the residential neighborhood was there first, and we didn't buy and build because after the hotel, knowing the hotel was there. The hotel doesn't bother me, but the rooftop does, because I'm not sure about the alcohol policy, and I'm not against alcohol, but I know the noise that it creates. And I know that Sean mentioned that there would be no BYOB, but how is that enforced? And I know he said that they wouldn't serve alcohol, but does that mean that if people bring their own, that's going to be a loophole? I just would question everything.
Thanks, Janice. Further public comment tonight on this item? Anyone can comment, please.
My name is Bart Slaney. I live on 220 Central Avenue, right around the Ace Hardware area. Didn't plan on speaking tonight, but since I'm here, I know from a standpoint of living down there the last 3 years that if we're just specifically talking about noise and how that's going to affect the local area there, you have truckers that are running right by there. The front portion of the hotel, from what I'm understanding, is where the hot tub is going to be sitting at. So as far as for speaking to anybody on the east side towards the residential area of Whitefish, I don't see how that would really affect anything. And me living closer to downtown area there, you have the top of Casey's Bar, that is a rooftop bar, and with the downtowner specifically there, and they have a hot tub. I don't really see how, from a standpoint of living down there, that any type of audio, I understand audio completely, and I know that living down there, that corner on 93 is probably the busiest intersection between Whitefish and Kalispell. So as far as having substantial noise or anything coming from those guys, that's going to be above and beyond impacting local residential sides on the east side. I don't see how that would affect anything. So that's my standpoint.
Thanks, Bart. Further public testimony? Further comments tonight on this item? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Angela Flickinger, 676 Trumbull Canyon. I am the Firebrand General Manager. I have heard the concerns voiced by our neighbors, and I get it. I'm a mom of 2 daughters, and so I totally understand the concerns that the neighborhood has. Let me assure you that my team takes all guest security and safety into consideration. Our number one motive, goal, is to create an environment that's pleasant for all of our guests. We track our guest demographics, and the majority of our guests so far have been families and adults 45 to 65 years old. We are not the frat party house, and we will assure that that does not happen. We are so thankful for the warm welcome that we have received from our downtown business neighbors. We have enjoyed meeting them and getting to know them, and we look forward to the wonderful partnerships we've already created and the ones yet to come. Here's another important part of this decision for me and my staff. There are currently 51 employees of the Firebrand Hotel. 51. 70% of those employees live in and around the hotel. They are Whitefish community members. They enjoy going to work and living in downtown Whitefish. There's the single mom of 4 that's going to FBCC, and she hopes to graduate in May if she is able to afford her last semester. And there's the young man who's super excited about having insurance for the first time because he has a full-time job, so he can afford the medications that he needs to take daily. And then there's the husband and wife duo that I have working for me. They split their work shifts. She works days, he works nights, so they can defer their child care costs. They have 5 children, all under the age of 8. Hotel industry standards and independent studies show that the addition of a hot tub can affect occupancy by 20%. 20% has a huge impact on the workforce. 20% means I have to make the decisions whether I reduce someone's hours or have to lay them off. It affects their eligibility for health benefits. And this is above and beyond the revenue impact it can have to downtown Whitefish. And that's where most of my employees live. So please take a minute to consider the 51 employees and the 152 family members that your decision impacts. I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Angela. Further public testimony? Going once, twice. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave the public hearing open, but I'll turn it back to council for discussion. Who would like to begin? Andy.
I'm going to make a motion to continue the public hearing till November 22nd in light of the fact we received correspondence from the applicant's attorney after we received our packets and after the staff report had been completed, and our legal counsel is not here. She's not seen that letter, and we can't ask her any questions or get any advice on it. So I would move to continue the public hearing till November 21st.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Councilor Williams. I believe, is that the 21st of November?
21st, yes.
Okay. Further discussion on the motion? All those, Chuck?
I just wanted to point out, I mean, you know, the letter written by the applicant's attorney from Missoula obviously is dealing with a potential decision that you would continue to deny it. If you were inclined to approve the hot tub on the roof, I think you could go forward tonight. They're not going to sue you on that decision. But if you want to keep open your options and consult with Angie, then obviously you would want to continue it.
I think that was the intent of Andy's motion. But your comments tonight have been entered into the public record. The public hearing remains open if you would like to comment at the November 21st meeting as well. That's for the general public as well as the applicant. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that does carry unanimously. Michelle.
Really? Really?
What's that? I've never seen them.
On that, no.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and move on to item 8A, which is the approval of the rating panel and selection panel with one elected official to recommend the selection of a firm or firms for engineering services during years 2016 through 2018. Craig.
Good evening. I'm here to present to you guys, or request from you guys, the creation of both a rating panel and a selection panel for a number of projects that I look forward to proceeding with in this budget year. We, as I'm sure you guys all recall, went through and updated the consultant selection policy earlier this year, whereby any services exceeding an expected dollar of $20,000 we'll need to go through this process. We have advertised for an RFP for 7 projects that we look to move forward with in fiscal year 17. Those projects include Central Avenue reconstruction, Summers Avenue reconstruction, the Flathead Avenue roadway extension, the Armory Road drainage improvements, a variety of cast iron water main replacement projects, the sewer replacement from Greenwood to Columbia, as well as the siting and evaluation of the South Whitefish water tank. We did receive proposals from 9 consulting firms for these projects. Those were received on the 21st of October. And in order to continue the evaluation and proceed with a contract with one or more of those consultants, we will require from council both a rating and a selection panel. The way that the new policy works is that the rating panel must be made up of city staff and other individuals approved by the city council, and a selection panel to be comprised of the department director, one other staff person, and one elected official. I interpreted the rating panel perhaps to have other individuals to be optional by council, and so it's my recommendation that council appoint Karen Hilding and myself as that rating panel. Will go through and evaluate the 9 proposals and make a recommendation to interview one or more of them, more likely more. And then those interviews would be conducted by the selection committee. So it's my recommendation that the selection committee include Karen and myself, as well as one elected official, which presumably would be one of you guys, or perhaps somebody who's not here. So with that, I'll close my presentation, but I'm obviously here to answer questions or make suggestions.
Questions for Craig? Richard?
When do you envision that panel meeting?
My goal would be to have a contract back to council this year. That gets a little tricky at this point because we only have 2 meetings left, and so I'd hope to have the interviews in the next 3 weeks. So by the end of December, or excuse me, by the end of November.
If no one's interested, I am.
Perfect.
Unless, Mandy, you...
No?
We would first need a motion, but I would volunteer if
And-
that's
and-
okay with the council.
Mr. Mayor, I know how busy you are, being the only retired person on council, but my schedule is somewhat complicated. So I'd have to work around that. So, but if you'd like to do it, I'm happy to have you do it.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
We'll need a motion.
I'll make that motion, that we have the mayor be the elected representative on said panel.
And then,
I second.
and then an additional motion, or along with that, the approval of the rating panel and the selection panel with Karn and Craig as well.
And approval of the rating panel.
Okay. Is there a second to the
Karn and
motion?
Craig.
I second.
Seconded by Councilor Williams. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that's unanimous. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
We will move on to, you're welcome. Item 9, communications from our city manager. You have Chuck's written report enclosed with the packet. Any questions from the council? Chuck, other items to report on?
Just, I forgot to put in the report that City Hall is closed tomorrow for Election Day state holiday, and also Friday for the Veterans Day state holiday. So also don't forget to vote if you haven't voted already.
Great. Thank you, Chuck. We'll move on to item 9C, which is resolution 16-56 relating to a $779,000 special improvement district bonds, Series 2017, authorizing the issuance and private negotiated sale thereof, and authorizing the pledge of the revolving fund to the security thereof. And this is on page 303 of your packet.
My report begins on page 307 of the packet, but last year when we were issuing the tax increment bonds for a city hall and parking structure, the two local banks that we were negotiated with for that bond issue expressed possible interest in this SID bonds for the parking structure as well. We continued discussions with them on a private negotiated sale, which is allowed by state law. Doing a private negotiated sale with the banks is advantageous in that we avoid a lot of disclosure. They're considered a knowledgeable buyer of bonds. We don't have to do a prospectus. We don't have to go through public bidding process, but we also need to ensure that the interest rate that they propose is competitive with the market. I think at the last meeting, we got the basic go-ahead from the city council to negotiate with the banks, and they had given us the term sheet proposal that is in your packet and that the council had seen and reviewed at the last meeting. Subsequent to that, we allowed all the property owners in SID number 167 an opportunity to prepay their assessment if they wanted to avoid all interest. If they wanted to pay off the principal assessment in advance, they could then avoid paying interest over the terms of the life of the bond or until they wanted to pay it off. We got $69,638 of early payments, so that's about 7 or 8%, I think, of the assessments. So that's pretty good response by the people who wanted to pay off early. On page 308, when we deduct that $69,638 of assessments, we get a revised sizing of the bond issue that comes out with bond size at $779,000. Next step tonight is to consider and adopt this parameters resolution. And what this resolution does is it restates a lot of the facts of the bond issue, and then it authorizes the mayor, the finance director, and myself to sign a bond purchase agreement when we do the pricing of the bonds with the banks. So as you can see in the term sheet from the banks later in the packet, their interest rate proposal is based on an index of the home loan bank, and when the date that we price the bonds, it will depend on what the price from that home loan bank is. And we're right now scheduled to price the bonds on November 29th, a Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Page 310 is the bank's rate proposal, and you can see it's the Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines, and then they would add 120 basis points to the Federal Home Loan Bank rate of Des Moines. So on the 29th, we would check those rates, check their proposal, write up a bond purchase agreement,
and the mayor and the banks and Dana and I can all approve and sign it. The parameters resolution lists some parameters that we have to live within or we can't sign it. We round up some of those parameters so that we make sure we have some flexibility to close on the bond purchase agreement. So you'll see in the resolution, let me go up there. It allows us to price it up to, I believe, 4.5%. I'm trying to find that for you. It's probably on, yeah, it's on section 202 on page 305. We can't exceed 4.5%. Right now, when they wrote that term sheet proposal a month ago, we would have priced it at 3.75%. So obviously there's some flex in there. It'll just depend on the market rates where they are on November 29th. We can't issue more than we can't do a bond purchase agreement for more than $779,000. And then it has some of the other parameters, but those are the two primary ones that limit us. So basically, this is another step in issuing SID number 167 bonds for the parking structure. Then we would come back to you at your meeting in December with a final bond resolution with all the pricing and all the legal parameters and covenants of the bond issue. And then in January, early January, we would close on the bond issue and put that money towards the parking structure.
Thanks. Any questions for Chuck on item 9C? Richard?
I'll make a motion.
To
approve Resolution 16-56, a resolution relating to $779,000 Special Improvement District bonds, SID number 167, Series 2017, authorizing the issuance and private negotiated sale thereof, and authorizing the pledge of the revolving fund to the security thereof.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Fury, although Pam was reaching for the mic. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that carries unanimously. Michelle. Thanks, Chuck. And we'll move on to Dana for what will be a review and consideration of adoption of the annual impact fee report. And this is on page 312.
Great. Thank you. So according to the impact fee code section for the city, the finance director is required to report annually to the city council on impact fees. Last year I reported to you, however, last year we did not have a quorum of the committee, so we didn't have a committee meeting. This is the first time this report has gone to the committee in 2 years before coming to you. So I'm just going to kind of run through the report. Obviously it's detailed, but I'd like to touch on some highlights. One is this is the first time I've really reviewed cash balance in the past 2 reports, at least since I've been here. And the reason I did so is one of the generally accepted, what is found to be appropriate, I guess, is for cash balances to not just continue to grow in impact fees. There should be a connection between when a developer pays and when funds are spent. For the reason them paying is that they're having an impact on the city, and we are requiring additional capital improvements to serve their developments. None of ours at this time are seriously concerning. Most are, we've been spending them on various projects. The only one that I've brought attention to is the water impact fees, and that is one where we've been saving up some funds. We do have over $1 million now in cash balance for water impact fees. But Public Works does have projects identified, and I've included the CIP from last year in the report so that you can see that there are projects coming up in the future. But I wanted to just make sure that the Public Works Department is aware and should be looking for those type of projects. Obviously, we've seen up and downs in cash balance. That's expected. One, we've had some really great revenues, but we've also had some really great projects that we've been able to do with impact fees. So first, just touching on revenue. Impact fee revenue is really connected to building permits and the building environment. So obviously, we've seen really strong building and growth over the past few years. Last year was a great year. All impact fees exceeded our budgeted amounts. So what that does, though, is obviously allow for additional projects. Some of the projects that we've done over the past few years have been great projects. The one specifically for fiscal year 16, we have done for obviously City Hall. That's one of the easy ones. We've transferred money for the first time from City Hall impact fees to the City Hall and Parking Structure Fund to fund that project. Paved trails, in fiscal year 16, we contributed funds to Sky Park Bridge. This year, we've actually already spent some impact fees on the bike path near Pine Lodge to Stumptown Inn, I think, if I know that area. Near the Pine Lodge, you'll see it's a great new path. So we've actually used some of that wasn't originally earmarked specifically in the budget. But Public Works found a great project. So stormwater impact fees, Monaghan stormwater project we did in fiscal year 16. And although we don't have any projects budgeted in fiscal year 17 for stormwater impact fees, we do have State Park Road coming up, which is going to be a very large project, resort tax project. But stormwater will be a significant part of that as well. Park maintenance, building, and emergency services center impact fees are a little bit different. What we do there is we've spent funds to finance the ESC, Emergency Services Center, with a bond through TIF, and the park maintenance building was also funded through TIF. So what we're doing is reimbursing the TIF fund with those impact fees to repay the debt or the original expenditures. For the water impact fees, we have used them. We used water impact fees on the Lion Mountain Loop Interconnect project in fiscal year 16. Fiscal year 17, we have a minor amount budgeted for the shop expansion, but overall, we didn't have anything specifically identified. So again, we'll be looking at fiscal year 18's budget to make sure that there's some use of those funds. Wastewater, we have used impact fees on the Birch Point Lift Station project, Cow Creek Sewer Extension project, and again, the shop building expansion. Wastewater impact fees have been budgeted this year for any additional Highway 93 utility improvements. We haven't got the final bill from the Department of Transportation for that project, and potentially there could be a change order with the big boulder that came out of there, which was due to the expansion of the sewer system. So that money is set aside just for when we receive that bill. And then also it will cover in fiscal year 17 the sewer main upgrades north of the hospital, Greenwood to Columbia, where we'll be doing, I believe, upsizing and potentially new lines. I'm not sure. I have to ask Craig that one. So with the committee having met and reviewed the report, there were some minor changes that they asked me to make, but they did recommend the annual report to council at our October 20th meeting. The other thing that we talked about, though, was the impact fees required by state law. We have to do a 5-year annual review. And this next year we'll be ready for our 5-year annual review. The committee, Jen moved to recommend City Council to hire a consultant for fiscal year 18 for a rate study and update on impact fees. It was seconded by Patrick Nagel, and then it passed unanimously. So basically the committee would like the council to consider in your fiscal year 18 budget, including funds set aside to hire a consultant. The questions were asked, could I do it internally? And could I? Yes. Do I have time? Questions, especially with a new city manager. I think it'll be a difficult year to try to have a study like that. Some of the stuff that you have to go through is like mileage of trails within the city, and it would take some time. So other than that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Impact fees are doing great. Going into this quarter, I'll get to in a little bit and let you know where we're at now.
Thanks, Dana. Questions for Dana, or can I have Craig?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we do show, I think, about $150,000 this year for the South Whitefish water tank, which could potentially be an impact fee project or expenditure. That's one of the projects that we will be interviewing consultants for in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully knock that water number down a little bit.
Thanks, Craig. Motion? Andy?
I would move that we accept the Impact Advisory Fee Committee's annual report.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Councilor Williams. Further discussion? Thanks for the report, Dana. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that's unanimous. Michelle, and we'll stay with Dana for our quarterly financial report, which is on page 321 of the packet.
Great. All right, so one of the things that I always look at, again, is cash balance, specifically in our property tax supported funds. When I first looked at cash balances, I'm not going to lie, I was like, what is going on here? But when you take a deeper look into the financials, you understand what is going on. So total cash and property tax supported funds at the end of the quarter, September 30th, decreased by 51.9%. Again, after closer review, it was determined that this decrease is expected. Specifically, I'm going to just kind of touch on each fund. I think it's important, especially the ones with a larger change. The general fund, we typically have a net loss in the first quarter. One, we don't receive our property tax revenues until November, so actually, we don't receive until December. So that is always an impact that we have. This year, with the decrease of $211,000 or 55%, that was due primarily to starting the year off with a lower cash balance than the prior year. And it has to do with the spending down of cash reserves in the fiscal year 16 budget. Now, to clarify, the fiscal year 17 budget, we did have almost 12% of reserves, if I remember correctly. And it has to do with where that 12% is allocated. So you have 5 different funds that are going to make up that 12%. Well, the general fund happened to have a lower amount of that 12% compared to what expenditures it has. So we'll continue to see this in fiscal year 17. October, this was the first time I've had to do the resort tax relief transfer to the general fund in October. So I think it's something that we'll have to pay attention to come fiscal year 18 budgeting, actually, just to look at which funds have the cash reserves specifically. And of course, it's always better to have more reserves in your general fund because it's the least restricted fund that could, in a time of need, transfer with a budget amendment to any fund, whereas money in the library fund or the parks fund cannot go back to the general fund. So on a good note with the Parks and Rec Fund, although they have a negative cash balance, which they always do first quarter, it is 57% less than the last year. So I think a lot of that has to do with the ice rink and startup costs. And also there are cost-saving measures that they do. But the negative cash balance has to do with timing of revenues when they receive from their different programs and startup costs. Law Enforcement Fund, they did have a decrease about 61%. Again, this has to do somewhat with starting the year out with lower cash balances from a couple years ago, but primarily revenues just didn't have quite the increase as expenditures did. And some of that can be timing issues. So it could be that they had some purchases up front, whereas some grant revenue hasn't been collected yet. So we'll just be monitoring that one as well. Like the general fund, the fire and ambulance fund had a lower cash balance also, 63% down. There's 2 big reasons for that. One, they started off the year off with less money. But they also have the ambulance services where we're billing revenue, so we record the revenue, but we aren't necessarily receiving it yet. So there's some of that also having an impact. But the other part of it is that expenditures were up and revenues, again, were a little bit down. I don't have major concerns over this fund either. I think what's going to happen as we monitor revenues and expenditures, we will see that they both come out, and with the budget anticipating growth in cash reserves, I think we'll see that. And again, the fire and ambulance fund, similar to the general fund, is affected by the property tax collections being mostly in December. So I think we'll see an uptick in that. So overall, looking at the property tax supported funds, I would say that the city's finances remain in generally good condition. There are some decreases that are a bit shocking maybe at first, but again, they are anticipated. I don't think we need to reduce spending anywhere at this time, but it does kind of reinforce the idea of monitoring and really looking at what's happening, because what you can take at first glance can look really bad, but it turns out, oh, well, we meant to do that, and it will correct itself later on. Or vice versa, whereas I don't know if anybody's heard, but I explained it in my report, Northwest Energy settled with the Department of Revenue. Some cities are facing some really big losses in their taxable values. The city of Whitefish, we are affected, but at a much smaller amount, so we won't need to adjust our budgets or expenditures for this year, but there are some local governments and schools and cities that are going to have to look at that. So, on a high note, municipal court fines are up 39% from the prior year, and they're already 36% of the fiscal year 17 budget. One of these things, I talked to Christy Curtis, our prosecuting attorney, and I said, I don't really want to say why it's happening, but it sure looks like it's working with having you in-house. And I asked Angela Jacobs, and she also would agree that it's been doing well. So I think there's probably a mixture of both, probably police uptick in ticket writing, and maybe the judge's work, and then having an in-house prosecutor who's really going after. She's just really good at what she does, it seems like, and staying very busy.
Are those billings or collections?
Those are. I'm going to say overall, they are technically billings, but their collections, they have a much higher rate of collection actually than ambulance would.
Okay.
So, because their option is to pull somebody's license, I believe, and so they have people pay. So it's within a very quick turnaround.
Okay.
Yeah. The one thing to try to kind of look at, and it's kind of overall, building license and permit revenue, impact fees. We are seeing a little bit of a downtick. We are at or exceeding our budget, but we are down from last year. And I think it really has to do with the amazing commercial and residential activity that we had last year. So because we're within our expected budget, it's not a big deal that we're down from last year. We kind of anticipated that. Last year we had 2 hotels and the City Hall plus another large development in May submit a lot of impact fees. Resort tax collections are up, and we have been seeing some really great reports over the past few months. The last quarter looked great. And I think some of that has to do with the new hotels in downtown. They have been, and I know that it has to do with some of the new hotels downtown. And we've also just had a lot of really good months, it looks like. Let's see. I don't want to bore you with that. There wasn't much detailed analysis. Everything's really looking on track with expenditures. There wasn't anything that was really startling to me, so that's really great. I think usually I have something to say, but this time it all looks like it's flowing with the budget. Water sales, wastewater sales are slightly down from last year. And I think it only has to do with consumption. So this last period, we had a wetter summer and a wetter fall, obviously, so we'll see that continue probably than the prior year. But we did have the 2 rate increases that will start changing that. City Hall parking structure, City Hall and parking structure fund. I just wanted to give you an update. At the end of the first quarter, of fiscal year 17, we're at 21% of the budget. So I think we'll see an uptick, and that one will jump up, obviously, toward April, so we won't see that steady spending, but right now we seem to be right on track. So I think it's great. You know, we're in good condition. Like I said, we're continuing to feel the effects of the recession lifting with additional city staff positions added in fiscal year 17. We've had an increase in return on our investments. The continuation of a strong building environment seems to be continuing for us. And resort tax collections are increasing despite the Canadian exchange rate not being at its most favorable right now. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thanks, Dana. Any questions for Dana on her quarterly report? I had a quick question, Dana. So on page 322 of the packet under your summary, which I appreciated, you indicated the settlement further supports the need for cash reserves, specifically within the general fund, which is our least restricted fund. What is your goal for reserves, if you were to give some advice to the council as we enter the next budget session in the next couple months?
You know, honestly, being a little bit more fiscally conservative, I'd like to see our reserves at 20%. It's very standard, 20 to 25%, but it's something to build up to. I mean, obviously, you don't want to do it all at once. I think what we need to look at the next budget cycle is really look at where those reserves, which funds they're in, versus, 12%, we're making it. It's not that we're not going to make it with the 12%, but looking what funds, and then looking to the future, because I think, one of the things that we want to see is when we do start seeing a downturn in building and development in the city, we want to be prepared, because that we do get some revenue in our general fund from planning fees, and to just be prepared in the instance we have to do a loan to the building fund again, that we don't want to have to do. But I would recommend 20%.
Okay. Thanks. Any further questions for Dana? There's no action required on this agenda item. Not seeing any. Richard.
As always, you make it readable, and I really, really appreciate that.
Thanks, Dana. We'll move on to item 10A. We have a letter from Governor Steve Bullock awarding the city of Whitefish a $40,000 CDBG planning grant for our phase 1, or excuse me, it would be the phase 2 affordable workforce housing plan. Any comments on the letter? I would just remind folks on December 5th, we're having a presentation from the consultant on our phase 1 needs assessment. I think the location and time is to be determined, but that same evening, I believe we're going to have a work session prior to the city council. Katie.
Location is now O'Shaughnessy Center at noon.
12, okay.
At 12, all of the public is invited, and there will be refreshments and a light lunch provided.
Great, and that's December 5th.
Correct.
Great. With that said, we'll move on to item 10B. Any comments on the letter from Alex Pearl of America in Bloom? Not seeing any.
I have a question. I have a question. There's got to be some cost involved, and I didn't see a cost when I read through it. If they're going to fly people out to look at your flowers in bloom,
Yeah, I didn't go to their website to see any. I'm sure it's a membership association, so I'm sure there's a cost involved in membership. So
I have no interest. I was just curious.
Okay. We'll stay with the council and start with Pam tonight. Any communications, Pam?
Nothing tonight.
Thanks. Richard.
I would echo what Chuck said. Anybody that's watching this, and if there's time, and anybody else out there, be sure to vote tomorrow if you have not already done so. It's an important thing to do.
Katie.
No comment.
Eddie. Wanted to just congratulate Clint Peters. He was offered the Columbia Falls Police Chief position, and also for his 14 years of dedicated service to the city of Whitefish. Best of luck to Clint. And just a reminder of our council retreat scheduled for next Tuesday, November 15th, which we will be advertising as a quorum of the city council in advance. On that note, we are adjourned. Thanks.